Hey guys, welcome back to the Lights Off podcast. If you haven't already, obviously make sure you subscribe. But today, pretty stoked and honoured to have the one and only Boy de la Cruz. So thank you so much for jumping on today.
No worries, pleasure to be here.
For those who don't know, obviously who you are and what you do, probably give us a bit of an intro on who you are, what you're about, and maybe a bit of your upbringing.
Yeah, sweet. So my name's Bo de la Cruz. I'm a Gujala woman from my grandmother's side, which is sort of central northern Queensland, and from my grandfather's side, I'm Irab, which is from Darling Island in the Torres Strait, over here in Aussie. I grew up in Darwin, in the Northern Territory. I had a pretty awesome upbringing. Obviously, very diverse with a lot of the cultures up there, especially a lot of the Asian influence. Coming up down through Asia and into the north of Australia. Did all my schooling up there. Started sport at the age of 6, as most of us do, always being around our mob and always going down to touch with the aunties or, down to league with dad or whatever it was. So, yeah, it's been a great sort of journey so far. I've obviously represented Aussie in a couple of sports. Being touch footy, rugby sevens. I played, Indigenous All Stars for league and played a bit of AFL. So, but it all started, I suppose, in Darwin with touch, and sort of went on from there.
Yeah, sick, awesome. And with like your family background,
yeah,
obviously do you come from quite a big family or?
Yeah, I come from a massive family, and it all probably starts way back from my great granny Salam. It was my grandfather's, my dad's grandmother. She had a whole bunch of kids, and our family is just massive. It's expanded from there, it's hard to actually keep up. And it's funny you say that because I'm actually just helping one of my cousins out with our family tree at the moment. So it's
cool.
been it's massive, sis. It's honestly massive, and I reckon it's going to take us a while, but culturally very proud of my culture. My father grew up in Innisfail, which is in far north Queensland, sort of between Townsville and Cairns, and grew up in the years of the stolen generation, the stolen wages, a lot of that stuff. So, and he was a part of the stolen wages with my pop. Which was, the government would take a certain amount of their wages when they worked. They were cane cutters, worked for the council, a lot of that stuff. So, we've sort of come from that line. My dad doesn't like to talk about a lot of his upbringing in terms of his culture and his with his culture. It's I suppose it's hard to talk about, or back in the day when obviously the government were involved with the stolen generation. A lot of the stuff, we weren't allowed to talk about, and we weren't allowed to practice. So I think a lot of that's been lost through a lot of our old people in terms of their culture, their language, stuff like that. So yeah, it's sort of been a big journey for me in terms of my culture and finding a lot of the stuff out for myself, talking to people, talking to my cousins, my family, all from far north Queensland. So yeah, it's been a really good journey this far, and now it's time for me to sort of spread that message and spread that, enjoy that with my kids as well.
Yeah. I find your guys' culture real fascinating, and when I moved over to Brisbane, that's probably one of the first things that I noticed. Obviously growing up in New Zealand, we're pretty proud of our Indigenous people, the Māori people, and incorporated quite a lot in our schooling and that. But when I went over there, I was quite saddened to see how much it's not so much respected as it probably should be. And you do quite a bit with the Indigenous community and to that age. So what's kind of your thoughts around that? Obviously it's changed a lot since.
I suppose social media is a big part of what we're filming these days, and obviously with a lot of the stuff that's happened lately, with the racism stuff, it's always been here, but it's just never been told, but now it's being filmed. Exactly. A lot of that stuff here is huge, and speaking of the Māori culture, when my my dad's eldest brother was supposed to be taken away from my nan. My nan, I suppose, thought on her feet and told them that we were Māori. So I grew up with a lot of the Māori community in Darwin. There's a huge Māori community up there. So I was a part of the Kapahaka group and all of that stuff. So yeah, I have a huge respect, because I suppose that that saved my family having to go through that. Which I just wanted to point out. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that's going on over here it has been going on forever, sis. And like we said, because social media is out, it's about and people are just now being a lot more boisterous about it. They're not scared to be up and in your face about it, because it's obviously the time is right now that we need to start educating people on Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander history and culture and the injustices of the past. And I think me and my husband, he's non-Indigenous, but we have a lot of conversation around this stuff. And I don't speak about things that I don't know about. Say ice hockey, for instance. I wouldn't have a clue, so I don't talk about it. And I think and I don't have an opinion about it. So I think that's where people need to start looking. Having a really good think about when they decide to have an opinion about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture or history or whatever. They need to really educate themselves before they know, because they just sound absolutely dumb. And just uneducated and ignorant, But the stuff that I do, I obviously work for the Institute for Urban Indigenous Health over here with the Deadly Choices program, which is a preventative health program, a lot around our 715 health checks. Obviously, we have a lesser life expectancy than non-Indigenous people. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander women, I think their life expectancy is around 70, 78. Non-Indigenous is around 78. Indigenous is around 71, 72, and then the same with the men. So it's a lot of the stuff that I do around health is obviously to live a more healthier lifestyle, and to make your longevity of your life worth it, and value it, and it's really important that we have people like myself and a lot of the other ambassadors that's spreading that message as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you touched on it about the education part, because I think that's really important. I hear when I was at Panthers, I hear like Patrice and Tim, just talking their language, and I think it's quite cool. But as a person outside of the culture, I have no idea the background, and you guys got like different mobs and things like that. So how does that work in your culture?
We've got over 300-400 100 dialects in terms of language within Australia. Okay. But we do have I suppose a world language that we all speak. That we all know. A lot of our slang and stuff like that. And it is hard. Like you have a lot of the mob that still live up in the far north of Queensland, the Northern Territory, the WA, that are still really strong in culture. Really, live. Some still live quite traditionally. Still hunt for their food. Still do all those amazing things that I only wish I grew up with. You know what I mean? And wish to pass on to my kids. But that stuff, one of my best friends is a traditional owner out at Arnhem Land. And so, my kids will go up there with her uncles and do a lot of the, I suppose, men's business that they do for traditional ceremony and stuff like that. So, it's pretty tough, because of the injustices of the past, that a lot of that was stopped. Practicing culture and being able to speak language and whatever. So, and I always love to tell the kids, it's not your fault. I said, that's probably stopped with your grandmother, which is always, if you don't know much about culture, it's okay. That probably stopped with your grandmother or your mother, which will never filter down to your mum, which doesn't filter down to you. So it's not your fault. It's all good, you know what I mean? Because it happened to a lot of us. It happened probably to a majority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. So I just, for our mob out there, I always want them to know that it's okay if you don't know much about culture, because it wasn't our fault, pretty much. And, if people want to go out there and learn and educate themselves about their mob and their culture, there's so much resources, there's so many organisations that can help you do that.
Yeah, definitely. And like with your because obviously you mentioned about like playing for Indigenous as well. That must have been pretty cool to be able to represent your culture, because compared to like obviously representing Australia, but there's something different when you represent your culture.
100%. I think when you get together, and like I didn't play All Stars this year. I've retired. I was the level 1 trainer. But I think when you come together, all that emotion and all that sacrifice and all that thing that's built up in you for the whole year, or for your whole life, you go into these camps, especially with the All Stars, and you go into them where nobody's judging you. Everybody respects you. Everybody respects our culture. It's something that, once again, a non-Indigenous person will never understand, because it's a thing that we have, that it's instilled in us, it's instilled in our blood, it's instilled in our veins, that, the representation of your people, knowing that hundreds of years that they've been sacrificing for us to have the freedom and for us to be where we are today. And that's a lot of the talk that I love to give out, and the conversations I love to give out to our kids and to our mob about why we do what we do and why we sacrifice so much, and why those old people and our elders have sacrificed so much for us to have the freedom we do today. And that's why I think we fight so hard for our culture to be recognised, and because we know how hard those old people lived and what they must have went through, in terms of racism, in terms of deaths in custody, in terms of deaths in general, for us to be living here today, And so I think when we talk about that, and when we live that, and we know some of the, I suppose, injustices that are happening with a lot of our kids today and our people, that all comes to fruition in these camps. And it's we're all on that same sort of path, where a lot of us don't know language, or we know a bit, but we're obviously not as educated along those lines as we'd like to be. And so we've all got a really common understanding, even though we're from different parts of the country, and we're all from different country. We call country out where we're from originally. It's it all comes to, it's a really beautiful time, and it's so, I think that passion that, I think especially this year the girls showed out on the field, where they just didn't give up for each other, because our old people didn't give up for us. And I think we've got to be that next generation to never give up the hope for a better life for our mob.
And I think it's true, like what you said, like there's a lot going on, and a lot of frustration for the Indigenous people, and I see some of the comments obviously on social media. Sometimes you don't want to read it, but you see some of the comments, and it's I think it's true, like it's not something that's just come about just because of the incident that happened in the States and everyone's blown up, but it's people's kind of just got to a point like that it's enough, and I think it's quite admirable that the Indigenous people do fight, and I like seeing the march. I saw some of the highlights of the march. Quite a few people coming together, so like even with the whole thing about what's his name, Latrell, and that when not singing the national anthem, a lot of people found that a bit rude, but like, I think if you sit back and look at it, like I understand in the sense of why you wouldn't sing it. I mean, if it's got nothing to do with your culture, yet you guys were the Indigenous people of the land, like, why would you sing
First
it?
Nations,
And so what was your take on that?
I loved it. I loved that the boys stood strong, and not, and use, media. People use media to. And media use the media to try and run our people down as much as they can, or put a dampener on what we do. and how we represent our people. I'm so glad that those boys use their platform to be able to stand up and tell people that they, and you know what pisses me off about the fact that everyone once again had an opinion and had a comment. How does that affect them personally? You know what I mean? That's the boys' personal thing that they want to do. They're not hurting anybody. They're not trying to be assholes about it. They're just believing in their values and in their culture and what they believe in.
100%.
And it's like any culture around the world. But Australia is just so ignorant and just not willing to want to learn about it. It's one of the most beautiful cultures in the world. Why not embrace it? Why not tell
100%.
your friends overseas how beautiful the Aboriginal culture is if you actually put yourself in it and want to do it? You can't change the minds of ignorant people unless you educate them. And sometimes they just don't want to know about it, sis.
Yeah.
They don't want to know. They don't care. All good. We don't need you. That's fine. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in a lot of the opinionated people should not have an opinion if you don't know shit about it.
Yeah.
And with a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff, for me, that was huge, we used a really good platform to raise awareness around death in custody. But for me as well, I want, and we had a lot of allies there, which were, obviously non-Indigenous people there marching for us, and I love them for it and I thank them for it. But at the end of the day, our lives matter every day, whether it's in our control or whether it's not in our control. And that's what I've done for my whole life. You know what I mean? So, and, they'll never walk in my shoes, or they'll never walk in the shoes of people that have been affected by stolen generation, or somebody who had a family member that had died in custody. But the fact that they're being allies is amazing, but it doesn't stop here. It's 364 days, the other 364 days of the year for the rest of our lives, pretty much. You know what I mean? So, I was huge on the marches. I didn't go because of, obviously, I've got 3 little babies, and I wasn't willing to put myself in a position. And knowing me, I pick up everything, any cold or flu that's going around. Even though I've got a good immune system, somehow I pick it up. So, at that time, and obviously with my role as a Deadly Choices ambassador, and we've just been, the messages that we have been pumping out on our media platforms and our social media, I didn't want to be that person that telling people, keep your 1.5 distancing, and then I'm going into it. So that for me personally, that was my, I love the platform that it was on. I'm so proud of all our mob that got out there and stood strong, and let's just hope that now it doesn't stop here. We've got to do something with that platform and what we created on that day. It was amazing.
Yeah, definitely. There's so many positives that can happen from the media, portraying those messages. But obviously, there's a lot of negatives as well. I mean, example, I watched the Rabbitohs game. They're not my team, but I love the amount of Indigenous people in that team. So I'll watch some of those games. Patrice is a massive fan of the Bunnies, but
she is.
I was quite fascinated watching the game, but the commentary on the trail, and I think he's an incredible athlete, but I was just so shocked of he does one thing wrong and it just gets blown up, and I just almost wanted to turn the commentary off because I'm like, let the kid play, man.
Exactly, he's very strong in his culture. He's got a big blocker out there near Taree, where he's from, which is just north of Newcastle. He goes hunting, shooting, does all those things that he should be able to do. And unfortunately, the stuff that happened with the COVID-19 stuff with him and the fox sort of got a bit out of hand. And obviously there were rules around what they were doing, and it was just unfortunate that it happened. Because a lot of our mob do that, we do go out when we're struggling, we go back to country, or we just get out of the city or whatever. And I get it. I do it myself when I go home. We head over the harbour to my auntie's block or something like that. So I get the isolate, wanting to be isolated from the city and whatever else. But obviously there were rules around a lot of stuff from the NRL. And from obviously the Australian government, which just all sort of came to a bit of a head, and the boys got in a bit of trouble for it. But in saying that, once Latrell got back to Sydney, they're still carrying on. You know what I mean? The media is still having a crack at just because he was coming third last in the fitness or whatever. They're all doing it.
I thought that was shocking.
It's just the media for you, and that whatever negative they can get on the fella, they're gonna, you know. And I love him. I'm so proud of the young man that he is, because he just stands strong. And it must get to him. But like, I know if that was me, holy shit, it would get to me so much. And like, I don't go onto social media internally, like when all the stuff is happening, just because I don't like to see the comments, and it takes me my everything to hold back replying to people. So I sort of just stay away from it, because I just know that it's a standard thing that happens when any Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander issue comes up, or the mob, you know, all the people want to get on and have their stupid opinions. But for Trell and Foxy, you know, like, they just let their footy do the talking, and you know, he's a good boy, and I don't care what anyone says about him. He's a good boy. He stands his ground. He stands what he's believed in, and and the thing is, what people need to understand, that boy's been brought up to believe that his whole life. So you're not going to change him now. He's a strong Aboriginal man, and it's so good from an Aboriginal woman's perspective to see that, you know what I mean. And I love the way he stands strong, and he will for the rest of his life, which makes the future for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people a lot brighter when you've got someone there like him and all the other boys, just, you know, making sure that they know what's important.
Yeah, definitely. And you guys have I guess still going on with culture, you guys have that Murray carnival, is it called?
Yeah, I think they've been caught off because due to COVID-19, a lot of that's been caught off. We're hoping All Stars is still happening. I think that's up in Townsville next year, which is, like, you know, one of the most amazing weeks for everybody involved. Like, everybody loves it, whether you're a fan of the game, whether you're involved within the teams, even from the Māori, you know, they love, like, we all love it. And you can just see the brotherhood and the sisterhood on the field after the game. You know, there's once again, that's another connection that for the Māori and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders, there's a connection there that you know, our two cultures hold together, going through a lot of the same issues, and their beautiful understanding and respect for our culture, and vice versa, is something, once again, nobody can understand until you're a First Nations people, and you know, of that country. So, you know, the amount of respect that I see held for each other during that week is just amazing, and I really, that's probably one of my most favorite weeks of the year is the All Stars week.
I remember when I saw it advertised on Facebook, like it was going to be a weekend, I was stoked, because there's like two of the greatest cultures coming together on a footy platform as well. And then I saw the tickets were just like going, like people were just like, oh yeah, I want to watch that, because it's two great cultures coming together and supporting each other, and then having the men's alongside as well. That would have been great, because they support you guys as well, which is awesome. And it's like vice versa, you guys stand with them as well. Hey.
Yeah, we got their backs, they've got our backs, and I think it gets a bit strong. It'll eventually, it's not as strong, the connection, as I'd like it to be, but it's getting strong. It's better, you know, from when we first played All Stars to now. The connection between the two teams is a lot stronger, but I like to see it a lot more stronger.
I saw a post just popped up a couple of days ago, actually, about Aboriginal culture being taught in schools. At the moment, is it something like, it's not like a subject you can take?
Some schools around the country have it, especially with strong Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander population. It was never part of the Australian curriculum.
Wow.
Captain Cook was, and the history about,
way.
And 100%. And history, that's how I learned about Captain Cook, and the history about colonisation, but it was never about the negative side of colonisation. It was all about, and it still is. They still have that same but what I love these days is there's a lot of young kids and Aboriginal, not just Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, non-Indigenous kids that are challenging a lot of the stuff these days because the knowledge is more out there. It's and I love the fact that when a teacher, the teacher is teaching Australian history, that a lot of these kids are challenging it, and and so it must. There is that I don't know. I'm not too sure. I haven't been back, obviously, but I'm an old girl now, and I haven't been back to school in a while. But there are components around Aboriginal history, but not as much as what you would like it to be. And I don't know how much of the truth is actually told around in those components. So we'll see how it all goes, but it definitely needs to be a part of the storytelling of the Australian people, Aboriginal and Torres Strait, and it's a hard one because it's so hard to get across the line. You know what I mean? You've got a lot of advocates and people in that in that system that are really trying to advocate and push for it to be like really ingrained in the Australian curriculum, but fingers crossed the truth finally gets out there one day.
100%. Like I think I only learnt about that like in my last year in Brizzy about it not being in the curriculum, because you ask any Kiwi that's been brought up in school here, they'll be able to count to 10 in Māori or say the colours in Māori. I think when I left school I probably knew more about the Māori language than the Samoan one.
Samoan.
So, people will be like, are you Māori? I'm like, I'll take it.
And I think the hard thing with that is you will get a lot of different, because we are so we've got so many different clan groups and different people from different country. You've got the big groups like your Wiradjuri, all the territory groups in all the Queensland, and you've got your Gubbi Gubbi. There's so many Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander groups. You got to be really careful in terms of what part of the country you're in and what part of that culture or that group that you are educating people about, because there's not just one language that can count to 10 in Aboriginal. There's over 340 different dialects. You know what I mean? So that's why when you see a lot of the when you like even our national anthem, as shitted as it is and as irrelevant to Aboriginal people it is, people have obviously tried to sing it in a Aboriginal dialect. And then you've got the different, groups and the different leaders of the groups going, well, hold on, where's our language within this song, So that's the hard thing in terms of, you've got so many different groups and clan groups and, from different parts of country. Then you've got language groups. It can get really complicated. But obviously, it's something that we'd love to have where, we could sort of get together and have one sort of language in terms of for that song, but for whatever represents our family, but our mob, but it's really, really hard because of all the different dialects we have in Australia. So we don't want to be looking as though we think one's more superior than the other. So and I like it, and I love the fact that you guys got Māori schools over there, and we've got the Murray School here in Brisbane over at Acacia Ridge, but we don't have a lot of specific Indigenous, that are just Indigenous schools around the country. So it's pretty. I would have loved to have gone to one, but then again, I love where I went to school. I've got a lot of, obviously Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander friends. I got Greek friends. I got Italian, Māori, Samoan, Tongan, cookies, Spanish. So in Darwin it's so diverse, and growing up knowing each other's culture and being so ingrained in each other's culture, there was never any racism up there. You know what I mean? Because we were all from different walks of life and we all respected each other's backgrounds.
Yeah, that's awesome, mate. And like obviously you mentioned you represented Australia in footy. Like talk us through that journey. And then obviously the transition to rugby league as well. Cause
Yeah, look, with touch, so touch was my first love. I played for the under-18s when I was 17, Aussie team. And being from the territory, it was pretty tough because, you know, Queensland and New South Wales always dominated touch, as they do league, as they do whatever else. So that was pretty tough, you know, being a little Aboriginal girl from Darwin, having to be fitter, faster, stronger, more skillful every time I went away, was pretty tough. And if it wasn't for this lady by the name of Kerry Norman, she's from the Gold Coast, who recognised me in a game when I was still playing for the territory at under-18s. She was trying to influence so many of the selectors, come over and watch this girl, and they were like, oh, where's she from? NT yet? Nah, they just brushed it. If it wasn't for her, you know, just recognising my ability and whatever, you know, she really came through for me, and she really pushed for me, and I always love her for that, and I always hold high respect for her for that. So yeah, when I was 18, I made the Australian Women's Open. I was in the Australian team for about 12 years. You want me to be honest about this team?
Yeah, why not? Let's go.
I can't remember a time where I had fun.
Wow.
I can't remember. I've made some lovely friends out of that team. I still keep in touch with them today. But yeah, I never had fun, sis, and the coach never made it easy for me. I remember my Australian captain telling me, and I've never said this on a media platform, but here we go. She pretty much told me if it wasn't for her taxes paying for me to be there, I wouldn't be there.
No way.
So yeah, you know, that was pretty. I never enjoyed it. I love going places. I've been to, you know, it took me to a lot of beautiful countries. I went to South Africa. I went to Japan. New Zealand. I always loved coming to New Zealand because I felt at home there. And that's because
awesome.
That's because of that cultural connection I had there with all the mob. And it's funny, I remember, you know, I won a World Cup, sis, in South Africa, and now I look back on it, who were the people I went to after to have a few drinks with? It was the New Zealand team.
That's cool.
You know, and for me, it's sad because I should have been with my own team, but I never felt a part of that team. And that was pretty tough. Like, and no one ever knew that. They never knew that. I just didn't talk about it. You know, I remember my dad coming to one of my games, one of my Trans-Tasmans in Coffs Harbour, and like he nearly killed my coach. And I used to be like, Dad, don't worry about it. You know, I think my coach started me for this Trans-Tasman against NZ. He started me every 10-minute mark of every half. So I didn't get on till 10-minute mark. And yeah, I didn't worry about it because I knew I had to do what I had to do to be able to one day do what I want on the field, you know. Yeah. So I had to sort of play their game until I did that. And I never enjoyed it. I never had fun. I couldn't wait to get home. I used to cry at night being on tour just because I never felt accepted. And especially being the only Territorian, being the only Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander person. I had a few really good friends there that got it. But still they were there doing their own thing. So, you know, I just didn't want to be a burden on them. So, yeah, my touch journey was, and, you know, and then I came to New Zealand one year. We came for the World Cup, Indigenous World Cup over in Rotorua, which was amazing. We had the best time there, and it was just about culture. It was about mob. It was about everyone. We stayed in the marais, you know. We really embraced the Māori culture over there. But it was probably one of the best tournaments I played at. And no word of a lie, a week before that, I just played for Australia against New Zealand at a Trans-Tasman in Auckland. Yeah, so from that shift from being in the Australian team to being in the Indigenous Australian team was huge, you know. Like it was like I can breathe now. I can, you know. So yeah, but then we transitioned over to the Sevens. One of the scouts came down to one of our touch nationals, and this was a year before the World Cup in 2009. And one of the girls, Deb Hodgkinson, she had told a lot of the scouts, you guys need to go down to the touch nationals, and if we're going to play in this World Cup Sevens, we need some touchies. They came and recruited a couple of us, which in the end paid off. We ended up winning the World Cup against New Zealand in 2009, sevens, in Dubai. I remember I got on the plane to go to Dubai, and I still didn't even know the rules of rugby. I was like, and I remember, that's what I did. Like, I knew a couple of rules, and I knew what I couldn't do, could not do. But a lot of the girls that played rugby knew all the little sneaky things about it. So during the tournament, I was watching a lot of the stuff and getting all those little sneaky ones about it. But even in the grand final, I remember it was we were 10-all at full time. We had to do overtime, and we kicked off to them. And Carla Hoep, she took the ball in, and the ball spat out of the ruck, and I was like, oh shit, can I pick this up? And I was like, you could have seen me, it was funny. I was like, and I just went and ran and picked it up and got it. We hit, I think it was Deb, our big front rower, and we were close to their line, this try line, our try line, and hit her. She's taken it up, and I've slipped around the back of the ruck, and I've just ripped this pass out to Shelley Matcham, who was another touchy that came through with me, and we scored. And it was crazy because we just had no idea. But it was the best fun, and I really enjoyed my time there. A lot of diversity in terms of culture there. We had Rebecca Tavo, Fijian, we had Maori, Malaysian, and Cheryl Soon, our captain. We had non-Indigenous. We just had everyone, and it was just such a beautiful time, and something I was so privileged to be a part of. And still to this day, that was the first ever World Cup, and we sort of set the platform. And I remember Cheryl, our captain, going over to the Olympic Committee, and she, after we'd won that, and it wasn't long after we'd won that, bidding for sevens to be in the World Cup, in the Olympics, and then we got it. So I like to sort of think, as much as and then I was able to do a lot of the tours. Amsterdam, all the places that rugby took me was just amazing.
It's crazy.
And I loved it. I loved it so much, and I miss it. I really miss it. But I was glad that my time there was amazing, and that was because of my team and all the girls, and the places we went to. Rugby was the bonus pretty much, and we got to travel the world. So that World Cup will always stay in our hearts and in our minds forever, because we were the first ones to ever win it. So we see a lot of the rugby girls today, and I'm so glad, like a lot of them, especially the older school, like Shani and Shano, and Charlotte Caslick, Quirky, Emily Cherry, a lot of the girls that sort of were coming in behind us still hold those values within that rugby team, and still understand that it is a privilege to be there and to take every opportunity that they can. So that rugby journey came to an end in I suppose 2012, when I fell pregnant with my first son, and and which was fine. Like I did what I want to do. Obviously the Olympics would have been lovely, because it was I had him in 2013, and the Olympics I think was 2014, and that would have been nice. It would have been really, really nice, but it wasn't my time, and I'm happy, and I don't have any regrets around rugby. And it's brought a lot of joy, and I've met a lot of beautiful people, and it's just been something that I don't regret, and I loved every moment of it. And then obviously with league, I was brought up in a league family. It was big family, league family, being from far north Queensland. And the reason why my family then moved to Darwin, my pop took up a pearl diving, a lot of the because he's Filipino, Torres Strait. So so a lot of the Filipinos and the Torres Strait Islanders did a lot of the pearl diving back in the day. Up in northern Australia. So he moved the whole family over there. But they were all rugby league families, and I sort of played my first game when I was about 16. My mum was a bit of a nutcase. She didn't want me to play league. Yeah, because I didn't play, but she let me play AFL, which I don't understand, but
Oh,
whatever.
wow.
And and she was like, "No, you're not playing league." And I had my first game, and I broke my collarbone. I was only 16, and she goes, "That's why you're not bloody playing league."
She
And
probably
so then so she was right in a way, but then she sort of once I turned 18, and that I just did what I wanted, obviously, and I never had a full season of league until last year with the Panthers.
With the Panthers?
And we won.
What a great one that one was.
Yeah. And how good is it to beat Burley, just saying.
Yeah. That was
with
an
their
epic
lineup
game.
of superstars. Yeah,
I think
it
that's
was
the
the
last
best.
time I saw you actually was that night when the Panthers are having a party.
Yeah.
That was a good one.
That's right. Yeah, it was amazing. We had the best time, and you know what? I loved it so much because the fact that I wasn't so pressured to play, because I knew I wasn't playing to make a team, or I wasn't playing for, I just played because I loved it.
That's so cool.
And I think that's why my season went pretty good, injury free, thank God.
Yeah.
And in playing with the people I love, I brought obviously Lavinia Gould, Kobe Jane, Way to that team along with me. All four of us decided to come and play together.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest pull was for me a young Avril. Remember Avril?
Oh, she's
Avril Mitchell.
one of my favorites.
So Avril rang me probably halfway through pre-season and said, "Oh, Bo, I really, really think you should consider going down to West Brisbane Panthers. Do you want to play league?" I said, "Oh," because all my kids were sort of, younger and whatever. And I was like, "Oh, I don't know." And then she just said, "Oh, there's a lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander girls there that I think would really benefit from your leadership." And I said, "Okay, let me work it all out." So I rang Greenie, our coach, and we had a really good yarn. And then from there on, it just sort of, I went down. I loved it. I loved the fact that there were young Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander girls there. And I think not just the leadership for football, it was the leadership in life.
For sure.
And trying to, role model what I've done, and trying, none of us are perfect either, which is one good thing I always used to say to the girls. And, but, the way I used to dedicate myself to training, to the games, to just, being a part of the team. I hope a lot of the girls got from that. Just because, but, the fact that young Kazia Lamont was there, Shanae, Kimmy Hunt had done her knee then. Tracy didn't play that year. Keisha didn't play. So, it was, they've got some really good young girls there this year. Takia Nagus, who is scary good. She's a back rower, and she's an absolute machine. It's going to be amazing. Unfortunately, I won't be there this year.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, no. After the first game against Burleigh, I've got a really bad neck. I've got a bulge disc in my C6, C7, and so and this happened when I was playing rugby. And every time I'd tackle, I'd cop a stinger down my left arm. Like my arm would just go dead. It's funny because I was only watching vision of one of our games in England the other day against China, and I totally forgot. And I saw, like, out of the blue, I've just done something, and then I've walked away, and probably the 3-second delay, I've just got this massive pain in my arm where it just crippled me. And I just think, and so after that first game against Burleigh, I was super fit. I'd been doing F45 and stuff leading up to it, and just training really, really hard. But I just thought to myself, you know what, I hurt my collarbone. I got a massive hematoma in my right collarbone. I just thought, man, I don't want to be doing this. I don't want to be waking up on a Sunday having my children not being able to touch me or climb over me and kiss me because I'm too sore. And I've had a few concussions, so I just, I had to make that call, sis, for me and my family at the end of the day. My little boy's a leaguey. He's an, I hate to say it, I'm not being biased, but he's an absolute gun, my son. So, my support's that's where all that's going to go. My husband's a coach within Manly. So a lot of my support's going there. I'll still play the random game here and there.
Nice.
I'll still play a random game of sevens. I'll always play touch. That you won't stop me with that. I think some of the girls were talking about netball. I was like, oh yeah, I'll have a run.
Yeah,
but yeah. So yeah, it's just a decision I needed to make for me and my family, and it feels like a massive weight off my shoulders. I really wanted to go again this season, but just my body was telling me otherwise. So I'm 40 in 6 months. Yeah.
No way. Well, you don't look it.
Oh, bless
you can keep going, but
I don't feel it, and I know my body can keep going. I know I could probably do it, but I just can't take the risk, and that's what's talking to me mostly.
Almost wrapping up, but just wanted to touch on, like, you mentioned, like, the Australia team for the touch, like how there was a time where you didn't enjoy it, like with like sport in general. Obviously you come across struggles and things like that, but for you, like, personally, like, how or what tools have you kind of used to help look after your mental health? How do you keep going playing a sport where you're not enjoying it, and you keep going back, or if you come across injuries and things like that, how do you kind of look after your mental health?
I've always been a very selfless person, and I've always done things for everybody else. Obviously my main motivations, I used to look a lot back on, and I've always asked myself that question, what, for a young Aboriginal girl coming from a very family orientated life, very close to my friends, very loving my community, how did I not tell them to go shove it and go home? Because it's bigger than me. And, like, first and foremost, what I did was always for my family. For my mum, my dad, my nieces, my nephews, my brothers, my sisters. That was, you weren't going to stop me with that. So even when I was down in my deepest, I always had them in the back of my mind. For my mum to be going down to the local, bar or sports club or bragging about her daughter is why I always kept doing it, or going, to a cafe with her friends or whatever. And then my second motivation obviously was for my people.
Awesome.
And growing up not so strongly connected to my culture, but always knowing that I was different, and always knowing I was Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, and always knowing that our people went through so much, was probably my second motivation and what kept me there. Because I knew if what I was doing was making a change to a little Aboriginal girl or a little Aboriginal boy, just by what I was doing, then I've done my job. And it was never about me, sis. It was never about me. It was always for the better of my people. And that came to a head one day when I got told that in the grand final of that World Cup in 2009, the Rugby Sevens, I had, like, they said that there was a whole bunch of mob in, I think it was Port Macquarie or Kempsey, which is in New South Wales, just that proud of me and watching my grand final and claiming me,
Epic.
And getting text messages from all my mob, because I remember I had an Aboriginal mouth guard, and, like, just something like that triggered me to keep going again. So I always got these little triggers every time that, when I thought, oh, am I done? Or when I thought, I can't do this anymore. It was something that always came up, and it was definitely a lot for my mob, and once again, if there's a little girl or boy out there that I've changed their lives for me doing what I'm doing, I'll do it for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? And whether it be playing sport, whether it be doing what I do with my role with Deadly Choices, whether it be going out and doing motivation talks, whether it be stuff like what you and I are doing today, I'll do it forever. It's no skin off my nose. I was built with strong shoulders, and that comes from my mum and dad, and from my mob, and I'll do it forever. And because it's never about me, because there's always a bigger reason that I think people need to look beyond themselves a lot of the time. And I understand there's a lot of mob that have got mental health issues and probably aren't as strong as what I've grown up with. But if you've got that motivation and you've got that will to want to make things better for yourself and for your mob and for your family and your community, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time, and it takes learning, and it takes education. It takes you effing up. You know, I was a very, very hot-headed player back in the day, and I had to sort of, and I think because that came from a lot of the passion that I put into every sport I played and every game I played, and wanting to lift people up to my level. And you know, even if it was just a bloody local game at home in Darwin, you know, I'd still get so worked up about it. And then I had to take a step back and go, well, hold on, is this good role modeling for the younger kids coming up? And it was always about them, you know, it was always about everybody else. And I don't regret that, you know, because it's made me, you know, be the player that I was. It made me become the person I am and the mum that I am today, you know. And I have no regrets about being a crazy woman on the field when I was. And you'll ask Vinny, like Vinny and Kobe and Wei, like they can just still see that competitive. They're like, even last, they call me the crow, just because when I bark orders, I sound like a crow, they say. But yeah, when I'm out on the field, I still hold a lot of that passion and a lot of that drive, but in a controlled way.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And lastly, like, if there is any like Aboriginal or Torres Strait people that are dealing with like mental health illnesses, and that, is there is there organisations that they can reach out to?
Yeah, there's hundreds. You know, there's heaps. There's your local Aboriginal health services, community control one that are run by Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. All my babies are getting in the car now. Say hi. Yep. There's so a lot of the Aboriginal health services. Obviously, Beyond Blue, we always you know, make sure that they're a really good organisation. But yeah, if you head to your local Aboriginal health service, they'll be able to point you in the right direction and give you the, I suppose, the support that you need. And don't be shamed, you know, don't be shamed to admit that you have a bit of a mental health, or you have a mental health issue, because we always go to the doctor if we're physically sick. If our head's sick, we need to go see the right people as well. There's no shame in it. We've all been through it in some way or another, whether it's been really bad or whether it's just been, you know, not so good, or you're not feeling too good up there. But don't feel shame. Make sure you head there and get the help that you need to be a better person for yourself, your family, and, you know, your community. So yeah, that's my advice.
That's awesome. And for those watching, obviously, I'll check some of those links in the description, so you know, if they are going through that, they can click on it and reach out. But Bo, thank you so much for your time today. I got so much out of it. But thank you for being real. And the whole purpose, again, for this podcast is for people to kind of relate in some way to some of it, maybe some of the things that you've been through. And if it helps one person, then that's pretty much the whole purpose done. So
that's the reason why we do it, eh, sis?
Yeah, 100%. Is there any last words you want to say, or anything?
I suppose just like a lot of the mob out there that I've always played against, you know, whether it be, and it's always been a massive rivalry with New Zealand, you know, and a lot of the people that I've always sort of played against, I hold the utmost respect for. And I thank you for taking the journey with me and being a part of my journey and helping me be the person that I am today.
Awesome. Well, thanks everyone for listening. Like I said, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. But we'll put both her URL for her profile net down there. So if you've got any questions, you want to reach out, obviously it'll be below. But yeah, once again, thanks heaps, Bo, for your time.
Thank
today.
you, sis.
Cheers.
Pleasure.